Today is the first day that the NASDAQ has closed below this uptrend that we've been monitoring. So in today's video, we're going to go over everything in the market. We're going to go over the dollar, the bonds, the crypto market, and of course, the main indices. So without further ado, let's get right into it. First of all, let's take a look at the SPY. We can see that it is now oversold on the MACD, which is a good sign. It means that if we can remain above support, then the MACD being oversold means that we can bounce off of it. All right, so that is a good sign for the bulls. We can make a Fibonacci retracement level real quickly here, and we can see that the SPY has support at the 23.6% Fib level at 432.44. And today is where we basically touched very, very close to that. We went to 432.72. All right, so we need to monitor whether or not we can hold this level. And then the next key level to hold is going to be this blue trend line here. And tomorrow that level is approximately going to be around 431.75. So if this level doesn't hold, then 431.75 needs to hold. And it is completely doable for the SPY to continue falling back down to this 38.2% Fib level at 429. Okay, so those are just some key things to keep in mind. Number two, the IWM. So this was a drawing from yesterday's YouTube video. I didn't erase it. And this is essentially exactly what happened. So I said that we would either bounce off of this trend line here at 216 or down here at this trend line around 214.50. So what happened was we cracked down below this first trend line and we went down to a low for the day of 214.94. So we bounced intraday from 214.94 all the way back up to 217.63. So if we had closed down here, right? So now let me erase this, okay? Because whatever. So if we had closed down here, and this was a giant red candle, like it was down here, right? If we had closed perfectly next to support down here, imagine this is a big red candle, then that would give a much better opportunity to buy into swings overnight. But because this entire move happened during the day, what might end up happening now is that we can still continue falling lower because we made this move intraday. So potentially it might have given investors an opportunity to reload into shorts for a retest of this trend line. All right, that's one of the things that might end up happening. Number two, which is the case so far, is that first of all, you can see that the IWM is now extremely oversold on the MACD right here. You see that? And number two, to continue now, the RSI is also sliding down, almost getting oversold as well. So the IWM can potentially cross back up above 218 and then continue on higher. But 218 is going to be a very, very important level for the IWM. If we can cross above that, then it is a good sign that we can retest 219 and then 220. And then from there, we'll see what happens. But for now, that is essentially it for the IWM. I would have loved to see it close down here. Then I would have definitely bought into calls. But because the move happened intraday, it still signals that we can still see potential downside on the IWM. All right. That's that. Now let's take a look at the NASDAQ, the bonds, and the dollar. So here is the NASDAQ. All right, we've been monitoring this trend line since May 19th. And this is the first day that we closed below this trend line. All right, and that is something that we have to take into consideration. That is potentially a bearish signal. And we can have potentially more room to the downside. But because we have a bearish signal like this, having, a much more bearish move on the IWM becomes much more unlikely. Because with the IWM already so overextended to the downside, very outside of the lower level of the Bollinger Band, we should see a reversal. But we saw the reversal intraday. So yeah, sorry, that's it for the IWM. Anyway, for the NASDAQ, this is the first day that we closed below this trend line. And one more thing I want to do is I want to create 2 more trend lines for everyone to see here, and I'm going to show you guys how to connect them. So you choose a trend line and you draw it from the bottom of this May 19th candle, and you connect to the bottom of June 16th, and then you draw another one from May 19th, and you connect it to June 21st. Okay, so now what's happened is you've created multiple levels of support now for the NASDAQ. And the bottom most trend line was today's support on the NASDAQ. If we cross below that, then that is going to be very, very bearish. It would mean that every single semblance of this uptrend is now broken. Okay? If we cross below that, then that's very, very bearish. So essentially, I took puts overnight as a lotto swing because we closed below this trend line, but it's very it's still a possibility that because we are oversold on the MACD, and we did have 2 consecutive, red days on the NASDAQ, we can potentially bounce back and retest this trend line that we broke below from. And then what'll end up happening is from here, we'll make a decision whether or not we're going to start trading back above, or whether or not this is going to still remain as resistance, and then we'll continue breaking down. Okay, so those are the 2 highest likely chances of what can happen on the NASDAQ so far. Okay, and that's essentially it for the NASDAQ. One of the key things to understand for the NASDAQ to remain bullish is that the 30-year yield had a very tremendously strong day today. So we can still see that it's very, very oversold on the MACD. It obviously is breaking out of, resistance levels. It's crossing above resistance levels. Yesterday we were looking at it and how it engulfed the 2 prior candles here. And today we just shot straight back up above, 163.20. And this looks very, very strong here. Okay. And again, the dollar also looks very, very strong still. It looks like it's about to cross above on the MACD. And usually when that happens, that is a bullish signal. So when the dollar and the 30-year yield are bullish, then the NASDAQ is bullish. But there is a discrepancy today because the NASDAQ closed below this trend line. So that's why I think that the highest likely chance for the NASDAQ is for it to retest 362 or 363 area and then make a decision. Okay, we can look at the US 10-year yield. Obviously, this dropped very, very heavily. And when the US 10-year yield is falling and when the dollar is... so when the US 10-year yield is falling and it's basically a signal that the IWM is also falling, okay? And when the US 10-year yield is rising and the dollar is rising, then the IWM is also rising, okay? So yeah, that's really it for the overall market. Now let's take a look at the crypto market. Well, it's not really looking too good for Bitcoin. Bitcoin is it's trading well below this trend line here, and this blue trend line is now at around 32,800. We can see that it is fighting to stay above this 786 level at 31,500. We crossed below it a bit, but yeah, this essentially is not a good setup or a good sign for Bitcoin. If 31,500 crosses and we break it, then 30,000 is going to be the main level of support. And then obviously, if that breaks, then we're headed into the 20s. So what we have to take into consideration is now Bitcoin is even more oversold on the MACD. And Ethereum is also oversold on the MACD, but it's holding above support. And essentially, if Ethereum breaks below 1850 and then also below 1700, then that is going to be terrible for the entire crypto market. We need to see whether or not Ethereum or one of these altcoins can help propel Bitcoin out of the abyss that it's currently in. Because right now it looks very, very bad for the overall market. But yeah, essentially those are the levels that we need to continue watching for Bitcoin and Ethereum. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys have any comments, please, drop a comment, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Have an amazing day.